December 1944. Snow presses down on the Ardennes like a lid. Inside a dimly lit headquarters, maps cover every wall. Red and blue pins crowd the paper. Outside, artillery thunders in the distance as Germany launches its last great gamble, the Battle of the Bulge. General Omar Bradley stands silent, reading reports that grow worse by the hour. Supply lines are snapping, divisions are scattered. And one name keeps forcing its way into his thoughts. George S. Patton. Not the Germans, not Hitler's panzers, but the American general whose speed, aggression, and unpredictability could either save the front or shatter Allied unity entirely. This tension did not begin in the Ardennes. It was years in the making. August 1944. The sun rises over the rolling fields of Normandy, where the Allied advance has begun in earnest. The beaches of D-Day are months behind, yet the fighting is far from over. The German army, though battered, still clings to fortified towns and river lines, using every inch of terrain to slow the American and British push toward Paris. In the U.S. command headquarters, tension simmers not just against the enemy, but within. General Omar Bradley, recently appointed commander of the 12th Army Group, faces a daunting challenge. His units must coordinate with British and Canadian forces, supply lines are stretched, and intelligence on German movements is often incomplete. The clock is relentless. Every delay risks giving the enemy a chance to regroup, to turn retreat into counterattack. But amid this pressure, another challenge looms, less visible yet equally dangerous. George S. Patton, charismatic, impulsive, and mercurial, commands the Third Army. Known for his aggressive tactics, Patton moves at a speed that unsettles even the most seasoned officers. His reputation is legendary, earned in North Africa and Sicily, where bold maneuvers and audacious attacks delivered spectacular results, but often skirted the edges of protocol. Bradley, cautious and measured, understands that Patton's genius can win battles, but unchecked, it can imperil entire campaigns. The Allies are fighting Germany, but within their own ranks, strategy and temperament collide. Bradley must temper his instincts, weigh risk against reward, and manage a commander who sometimes seems more force of nature than soldier. This internal tension sets the stage for a campaign where the enemy is not only across the battlefield, but sometimes across the conference table. By late August 1944, the situation in France has become a race against time. The liberation of Paris looms, but German forces, though retreating, still possess the ability to strike with concentrated armor and artillery. The terrain favors defenders. Narrow roads, hedgerows, and river crossings create natural choke points. Intelligence reports hint at German attempts to reorganize, to create pockets of resistance that could stall the Allies and inflict heavy casualties. Within the Allied High Command, strategy is under constant debate. Bradley favors a deliberate advance well coordinated, with secure supply lines, artillery support, and careful reconnaissance. Patton, by contrast, advocates speed, aggression, and taking calculated risks. His Third Army is ready to move at a pace that defies conventional planning, threatening to outflank and encircle German forces before they can recover. This creates friction. Bradley knows that Patton's audacity can produce stunning victories, but it can also expose gaps, overextend units, and provoke disaster. The stakes are enormous. Every decision carries consequences, not just for soldiers in the field, but for the broader strategy of the Western Front. American forces must maintain cohesion, morale, and momentum while navigating not only the physical obstacles of war, but the unpredictable dynamics of their own command structure. As the Allies prepare for the decisive push through France, the tension between caution and audacity, between meticulous planning and daring execution, will define the success of the campaign and the legacy of the men who command it. The human angle of this story begins with the men in the field, soldiers who understood that victory depended as much on leadership as on firepower. American infantry and armor units were exhausted from weeks of continuous operations after Normandy. They faced not only a retreating enemy, but a relentless pressure to maintain speed. Letters home from soldiers reveal a mix of awe and apprehension. Patton's reputation for strict discipline, relentless marches, and bold maneuvers inspired both admiration and fear. Bradley's leadership, by contrast, offered steadiness, a calculated presence that reassured soldiers while tempering risk. Tactically, the clash between the two generals' philosophies becomes apparent in operational planning. Patton's Third Army, famous for its rapid advances, relied on mobility, armored spearheads, and flexible coordination between tanks, infantry, and air support. His approach emphasized seizing the initiative, often striking where German defenses were weakest, regardless of the conventional wisdom of secure supply lines. Bradley's cautious strategy, however, prioritized consolidation of gains, careful reconnaissance, and minimizing exposure to counterattacks. This contrast created a high-stakes balancing act. Too much caution could squander opportunities, but recklessness could endanger entire divisions. From a technological perspective, American forces possessed an array of advanced equipment: Sherman tanks, mechanized artillery, and coordinated air-ground operations. Patton's aggressiveness leveraged these advantages, pushing vehicles and crews to their limits, exploiting speed over brute force. Bradley's approach aimed to synchronize these tools systematically, ensuring that technological advantages were preserved and fully integrated. Meanwhile, German commanders, though in retreat, monitored the interplay between these generals. They understood that Patton's unpredictability could force premature withdrawals, while Bradley's methodical progression threatened to trap units. Intelligence intercepted from German units often noted frustration. American advances were faster than expected, yet not always uniform, creating uncertainty in defensive planning. The stage is set, human courage, tactical philosophy, and technological power converge, highlighting a war not only against an enemy, but between two contrasting visions of command. The leadership angle deepens when examining Bradley and Patton not as abstract commanders, but as individuals whose personalities shaped entire campaigns. Patton's intensity, a mixture of audacity and obsession with speed, often intimidated subordinates and peers alike. His staff knew that hesitation could provoke his ire, while decisive action could earn rare praise. Bradley, by contrast, was measured and analytical. Nicknamed the GI's General, he maintained a calm demeanor under pressure, fostering loyalty and trust. Yet, it was precisely this steadiness that made Bradley wary of Patton. His subordinates' brilliance in maneuver warfare was tempered by recklessness that could invite disaster if left unchecked. The moral dimension emerges in the field as well. Rapid advances promised glory, but also risked casualties. Patton's insistence on aggressive pursuit sometimes clashed with Bradley's ethical concern for preserving the lives of soldiers under his command. This tension, played out in correspondence and war diaries, underscores the human cost of command decisions in modern warfare. Soldiers, seeing tanks surge ahead or infantry ordered to hold thin lines, confronted the tangible consequences of competing leadership philosophies. Enemy perspective adds another layer. German generals, seasoned by years of Eastern and Western Front campaigns, faced an unprecedented dilemma. American forces advancing from Normandy were unpredictable, their objectives fluid. Intelligence reports frequently noted confusion over which general dictated operations at any given moment. Patton's audacity forced German divisions to disperse, abandon prepared defenses, and engage in reactive retreats. Bradley's methodical approach, meanwhile, ensured that even areas bypassed by rapid armored thrusts remained under threat of encirclement or artillery bombardment, creating a strategic squeeze that left German planners scrambling. Finally, the technological angle reasserts itself. Communication networks, logistics, and combined arms coordination were tested to their limits. Patton's Third Army often outran supply lines, relying on improvisation and daring leadership to maintain momentum. Bradley's careful planning emphasized the importance of secure supply, synchronized artillery, and integrated air support. The juxtaposition illustrates a central tension in modern mechanized warfare: speed versus security, boldness versus caution. Together, these angles frame the story not merely as a campaign, but as a study in command, risk, and human judgment. The battlefield becomes a theater where contrasting leadership philosophies collide, shaping outcomes far beyond the immediate front lines. August 1, 1944, the sun rose over northern France, casting long shadows across the hedgerows of Normandy. Third Army tanks rumbled along narrow roads, their engines a low growl beneath the cries of war. Patton's forces, resupplied and reorganized after the breakout at Saint-Lay, surged forward with relentless intensity. Intelligence reports flowed into Bradley's headquarters, detailing the rapid movement: villages captured in hours, German units cut off, bridges seized intact. The pace was breathtaking and unnerving. Patton's audacity was clear in the push toward Avranches. Reconnaissance units reported enemy armor attempting to regroup, but Third Army columns moved faster than anticipated. Bradley, observing from his command post, monitored maps with crisp efficiency. Every square mile gained by Patton was a potential triumph, yet also a point of peril. Supply lines stretched, artillery lagged, and communication lines thinned. One misstep, one delay, could trap entire divisions in exposed positions. At 0900 hours, American tanks reached Mortain, the Germans' last defensive bulwark in the region. The village's streets were chaotic, rubble-strewn from relentless Allied artillery barrages. Infantry lagged behind the armored spearhead, and Bradley's aides fretted over coordination. Patton's radio messages were terse, demanding speed over caution. Every minute mattered. Hesitation could undo weeks of planning. Meanwhile, German commanders scrambled to mount a counterattack. Elements of the 2nd Panzer Division attempted to plug gaps, but the sheer velocity of Patton's advance disrupted their formations. Air reconnaissance confirmed German forces in disarray. Fuel shortages, scattered units, and broken communications compounded the pressure. Patton pressed, exploiting every weakness, while Bradley ensured that flanks remained secure, reserves were positioned, and artillery could strike rapidly when necessary. By noon, American armor had penetrated deep into German defensive lines. The human toll was visible: destroyed tanks, abandoned equipment, and soldiers moving under fire. Yet the momentum was irreversible. Patton's intuition for rapid maneuver, combined with Bradley's steady orchestration of resources and logistics, created a perfect storm on the battlefield. What might have been a disaster if handled by a less disciplined commander became a demonstration of audacity tempered by caution. In this crucible, Bradley's admiration and apprehension coexisted. Patton's brilliance was undeniable, but the stakes were monumental. One miscalculation, one rash decision, could turn this breakthrough into catastrophe. The stage was set for the decisive collapse of German resistance in Normandy. By mid-afternoon, August 1, 1944, Patton's armored columns had carved a corridor through Mortain and into the surrounding countryside. German resistance stiffened in isolated pockets, but it was fragmented. Machine gun nests and artillery positions were systematically neutralized by combined arms, tanks leading, infantry following, and air support striking with precision. Bradley, observing from his command post, noted the unprecedented speed of the advance. Reports detailed villages captured in mere hours, entire battalions encircled, and enemy units surrendering in confusion. The famed Mortain Gap became the focus. German forces attempted a counteroffensive with remnants of the 1st and 2nd Panzer Divisions. Their goal: seal the corridor and halt Patton's momentum. Yet Patton's aggressive flanking maneuvers, executed with near improvisational speed, disrupted coordination. Tanks slipped through hedgerow openings, artillery laid suppressive fire along German lines, and infantry infiltrated villages, cutting off retreat. Bradley coordinated reinforcements with meticulous precision, ensuring that Patton's bold thrusts did not overextend supply lines or leave flanks vulnerable. At 1700 hours, aerial reconnaissance confirmed a decisive advantage. German columns were retreating in disarray, vehicles abandoned, and communication lines severed. Casualty reports were grim, but the strategic objective was clear. Third Army had pierced the German front, threatening to collapse their entire defensive posture in Normandy. Patton's gamble had paid off spectacularly, yet it was Bradley's steady orchestration of reserves, logistics, and artillery support that prevented potential disaster. As evening fell, the battlefield transformed. Smoke from burning vehicles hung in the air, punctuated by the distant rumble of artillery. The landscape bore the scars of rapid mechanized warfare: shattered bridges, demolished buildings, and scattered debris. German morale was shattered, surrendering soldiers filled the roads. Patton's units pressed on, already preparing for the advance toward Argentan and beyond. Bradley, reflecting on the day's events, understood the delicate balance between audacity and caution. In less than 12 hours, Third Army had executed a maneuver that many had deemed impossible. German forces were in retreat, leadership disoriented, and the strategic initiative firmly in Allied hands. Patton had demonstrated why he was feared and admired in equal measure not only by the enemy, but by his own peers. Bradley's oversight ensured that brilliance did not tip into recklessness, turning what could have been a perilous gamble into a decisive breakthrough. The stage was set for the aftermath, a region in chaos, shattered German formations, and the Allies poised for an unrelenting push toward the heart of occupied France. The consequences of Patton's audacious thrust through Mortain were immediate and profound. German forces, already depleted from weeks of fighting in Normandy, suffered staggering losses in men and materiel. Accounts from captured German officers reveal a sense of disbelief. Entire battalions were encircled, armored divisions immobilized, and supply lines obliterated. Historian Carlo Dess notes that the Mortain Gap episode marked a collapse in German operational cohesion, leaving field commanders scrambling to mount an effective defense. Allied casualties were comparatively lower, a testament to the combination of tactical surprise, armor superiority, and coordinated air support. Infantry and tank units worked in seamless concert, neutralizing fortified positions and advancing rapidly through terrain previously thought impassable for mechanized forces. Bradley's command ensured that logistical support kept pace with the fast-moving front, preventing the overstretch that often doomed similar operations. Psychologically, the operation reinforced Patton's legendary reputation. German soldiers spoke in whispers of the American general's fearlessness and unpredictability, while Allied officers, including Bradley, balanced admiration with caution. Reports from the Third Army headquarters described both exhilaration at the success and anxiety over maintaining momentum. The battlefield itself bore the scars, craters, burned-out tanks, and abandoned artillery. The operation had not only shifted the tactical landscape, but had delivered a decisive blow to German morale in Normandy. Beyond the immediate battlefield, the Mortain operation reshaped strategic thinking for both the Allies and the Germans. Hitler's insistence on holding the Mortain sector, despite deteriorating conditions, revealed the dangerous rigidity of German command. German generals later reflected that the failure at Mortain accelerated the collapse of the Western Front, forcing an earlier retreat toward the Seine and leaving large swaths of territory vulnerable. The Wehrmacht's doctrine of flexible defense was undermined, exposing the limits of even well-trained formations when faced with audacious, fast-moving opponents. For the Allies, the success validated the concept of rapid armored exploitation, influencing subsequent operations across France. Lessons learned coordinating armor, infantry, and close air support while maintaining logistical fluidity would inform the push toward the Rhine. Patton's unorthodox methods, once a source of tension with Bradley, became case studies in initiative and operational daring. Commanders began to appreciate the value of audacity, tempered by logistical foresight and disciplined coordination. Diplomatically, Mortain strengthened the image of American military competence in the eyes of Allied partners, reinforcing confidence in U.S. operational leadership. German propaganda, conversely, struggled to frame the defeat, highlighting the psychological toll alongside the material losses. In the broader scope of the campaign, Mortain marked a turning point, showing how a single bold commander could disrupt entrenched plans, accelerate enemy collapse, and shift the momentum of a major theater of war. The Battle of Mortain offers a stark lesson in leadership, initiative, and the human dimensions of warfare. It reveals how audacity, when combined with skill and timing, can overturn numerical and positional disadvantages. Patton's willingness to take calculated risks clashed with Bradley's caution, highlighting the tension between daring and prudence in military command. Yet, both approaches were necessary in the orchestration of a broader campaign. Mortain also underscores the fragility of rigid hierarchies under pressure, as German command's inflexibility magnified the consequences of defeat. In the end, the operation illustrates that warfare is as much a contest of minds as of materiel, a delicate balance between fear and boldness, planning and improvisation, where a single commander's resolve can reverberate across an entire front.